Hello ladies and gentlemen, I hope I'm going live about now. Maybe my relationship with OBS finally is good now that I'm streaming over 5G, now that I've deactivated all media encoders and decoders. The last stream went really well and I hope we'll have a very similar experience today. Today is it's not an urgent topic given the state of the year we are in right now, or the phase of the year that we are in right now, but it is something still worth talking about because, well, we have to talk about next-gen flagships. Now, you might think that the next one in line is obviously something like the Pixel 8 Pro, which will be coming out in like 2 weeks. And then maybe after that we could start talking about just the Galaxy S24, which will be coming out like in mid-January and then like officially release early February. Well, guess what guys, I'm doing an S24 versus iPhone 16 video. I will try to see which flagships we're getting right, like, not right now, granted, but how the build up to those flagships is going and how the competition will look next year. I firmly stand by my words over the last couple of streams whenever people were bringing up something like the S23 Ultra, is that I think the iPhone 15 Pro Max is superior in almost every way. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that Samsung usually does, and I think that as their phones come out like 4 months, 5 months after the last iPhone, or what is the current iPhone, I guess you would say, I think there's always at least one hardware point where they like really improve on the iPhone, right? Sometimes it's just maybe the modem, which yes, usually gets better, but Samsung also has good antennas that they pair with it. Many other Android flagships, which usually are like half a generation ahead of the iPhone in terms of what antenna, what modem they use, do not necessarily deliver a much better experience. And then in terms of cameras, you could argue about the raw hardware, but usually if you normalize for the year where they came out, granted it usually gives the iPhone around 7 to 8 months of build up, but the iPhone usually wins. And then the next Samsung usually somewhat matches that previous generation, at least in my opinion. I know some people believe for it to win. I know some people believe for it to win a lot because they care about 10x zoom apparently that much. I have found in my last couple days of testing that really almost 5x is just a tad too far away for most of my zoom shots. It already makes focusing a little difficult. I really don't want to imagine how it works with a 10x camera that with a worse aperture, a worse sensor, but regardless. So there's this back and forth between Apple and Samsung. I think in a way that there isn't like between Apple and Google, because they come out at very similar time points. Google has been like notorious for getting some things absolutely wrong in some of their recent phones, whether it's battery life, whether it's overheating in a way that is actually relevant, not like it is on the iPhone 15 Pro. Again, I acknowledge that Apple's cooling should be better, but I still think it's pretty sufficient for most people. And then the other point is performance. Usually like the Google chips are way behind even the latest Snapdragon, which in terms of CPU is usually also way behind the latest iPhones. So yeah, I think the back and forth definitely is here more between Apple and Samsung. To a degree it's between like Samsung then and companies like Xiaomi. I don't think Apple is really competing with those companies for the most part. I think the attention is like, oh, you either get an iPhone or you get a really great Android. But if you're really considering anything except for a Samsung, then you probably already are in such this I prefer Android camp that you might as well just compare just Android flagships. Like if you can consider Samsung versus an iPhone, I can understand that. It's a long history. They do promise a lot of software updates. But if you are outside of China and think of getting one of those other brands, I honestly, like, pricing is probably the only reason, and then you are probably not looking at flagships. At least that's kind of how I see it. I know it's like not a universal truth by any means. Now, as I see it, my stream is working well in terms of quality. I apologize for the last minute basically announcement about this on Twitter. I really didn't know if I was going to stream at all today. But it seems all to be working fine, which I'm always really, really nervous about, as you guys know. Yeah, it seems to be working fine. So I do have basically two things that I'll consider doing throughout today, right? First, we'll talk about the next generation of flagships, and I think that's really relevant because over time this helps us make informed decisions, because somebody who might go back and forth between an iPhone and an Samsung, well, that person might say, well, the iPhone 15 just came out, but the S24 is not that far away. But if you're really using a relatively modern phone, something like an iPhone 13 Pro or even a 14 Pro, well, then you honestly have the luxury to wait another full year, maybe another 2 years. And then comparing all those things that will be coming out over the span of that time, in my opinion, is actually really, really interesting. Now, I don't yet know like how into detail we'll get, because obviously we'll cover both those phones in detail as more and more rumors come out over the next 3 months for the Samsung, over the next year for the next iPhone. But I would like to start with something pretty simple, and that is, well, how big exactly are those devices going to get? And I think, in my opinion, this is kind of an interesting discussion, because usually we don't focus on this that much, but to me it's usually fascinating to see how phones evolve and stuff like that. So let's continue. So or let's start, to be more precise. So, and I think it's important that we start obviously with the phone that is coming out sooner, which is the Galaxy S24. Now, these leaks are for the entire S24 family, not just for the S24 Ultra, but I do consider the entire S24 family sort of flagships. Especially probably as next year we are getting finally LTPO panels on the regular S24 and S24 Plus. And while I don't consider the regular and Plus iPhones flagships, I definitely have to acknowledge they're priced kind of as such. This is why I've been so adamant about hammering home the point that, to me, the pricing of the Pros is so fantastic because it hasn't changed for so long. If Apple had kept the same $699 starting price for the regular phones as they had basically when the iPhone 10 came out, and that was $999, but then the iPhone 6 started at $699. I believe the previous generation had started at $649, but then the iPhone 8, if I said iPhone 6, I apologize, but the iPhone 8 started with 64 gigabytes and started at $699, and then the Plus was correspondingly more expensive, but it is what it is. It had extra cameras, 1 gig of extra memory, much longer battery life. It made sense, right? But in my opinion, if Apple would price the regular non-Plus phones at $699, I would be similarly enthusiastic about them as I am currently for the Pros, even without promotion or stuff like that, without a dedicated telephoto camera. But at this stage, I do consider the Pros the real flagships, and I actually consider them very attractively priced, because even if Samsung manages to undercut Apple's Pros with like an S24 that is $200 less expensive, that S24 will not be the iPhone 15 Pro in most ways. The S24 Plus will not be the iPhone 15 Pro Max in pretty much anything. And then the S24 S24 Ultra will be the actual flagship that will be actually comparable to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It just so happens to be that that one does not undercut it in terms of pricing at all. So without further ado, let's get into it. I wanted to recommend you guys do the YouTube jazz, as I call it, which is obviously subscribe, like, share, and if you want to support the channel directly, thanks to it now being fully monetized, you can give super chats, super stickers, and stuff like that. So, this is coming from, basically a lot of it is coming from Twitter. It's coming from your ICE universes and, you know, your other Samsung leakers. They're usually actually quite reliable, but it's interesting because these leaks actually contradict some other leaks that we have seen over the last couple of months, including the leak that I sometimes talk about, which is the S24 Ultra having really large bezels. Now, I have been I believed this almost because this came from a relatively trusted leaker, but it seems to not be true. And honestly, when I think about it logically, I guess I might have been a little biased when I chose to believe it pretty early on. I don't think there is actually anything realistic about Samsung putting out a device with 3mm bezels. I thought maybe this would correspond with a device that would have a much larger battery, because they also obviously need to fit in the S Pen to a degree, but for all intents and purposes, it just doesn't make that much sense. So let's get through what we exactly have seen. I usually don't like to read a lot, but I think in this case it might actually be necessary so I don't lose any of the context. Next, new leaks of S24 series have hit the web, giving us a first look at the design and its tweaked look, while new display information reveals that Samsung will challenge Apple's new edge-to-edge iPhone Pro displays. Despite the phones themselves likely to not arrive until January, I believe mid-January is when we would get the announcement, we're getting a handful of key leaks this morning from two reliable sources. It starts with SmartPix sourcing on leaks with CAD-based renders. Okay, I actually do not know these guys by the name. I do know ICE Universe, but I do not know those people. Maybe I should really invest a little bit more effort into how I cover Samsung leaks by putting more research into who those leakers are, so that I can differentiate which ones are more reliable, which ones aren't, similar to how I do it in the Apple space. Like, we sometimes do joke about Mark Gurman being very vague with some of his promises, but usually Mark Gurman is reliable. When the guy from Front Page Check, I believe, Front Page Tech, oh, why did I brain fart on this, like, used to leak, he was actually pretty reliable for the most part. And then of course there's also your somewhat direct reporting, where sites like 95Mac, Mac Rumors will stand by some things. And then we've had like the guy who probably, I'm blanking on his name, but he had like apparently like Apple's keynote like files prior to the event. So a week before the event he basically knew everything. That was quite a crazy run for him. And then you have like your Digitimes, which are I guess that's the best way I can put it. Yeah. For maybe I should do the same kind of investigative journalism about Samsung, I guess. At first glance, the look appears effectively identical to the Galaxy S23 series, but there are some minor tweaks. Aini Namis, you're joining the chat. Amen. If the 16s will have solid state button, I will instant buy. I need something cool and innovative like that. Let's see. Quite honestly, we don't yet have full confirmation, but it's relatively realistic in that regard. Like, it seems to be really a feature that Apple pushed for internally, so let's see if that actually becomes something that they double down on and actually bring to market. Of course, there are problems potentially with things like cases when you do stuff like that, but then again, Apple has never been afraid to like do some stuff differently. there are some minor tweaks to the design, basically. The biggest change we see here is the frame, which has a flat edge that, for lack of better comparison, looks like Apple's iPhone 14 series. Yeah, it's can I do here like... Okay, I'll have to zoom in like this. Yeah, it's an extremely flat edge, right? Like when we actually look at the iPhone 15 in comparison, you'll find that it's slightly rounded because Apple evolved its design. But Samsung, in an attempt to clearly facilitates an iPhone like familiar look. You cannot tell me that this isn't done on purpose. Like I know that the shininess already is like what Samsung is doing. Like even the way the bands are positioned. Look, I know that some of it just happens to be it's industrial compromise. It's something that many companies will arrive at similarly. But then you look at something like their Ultra phones with their like curved displays and stuff like that, and you really wonder if there really wasn't another way. I think with the Ultra, they honestly believe that they have enough like functional differences to the iPhone and they can actually attract enthusiasts. But since they know that this really won't be feasible for the regular and the Plus models, they really rely on it looking super similar to the iPhone. Yeah, I always also forget that Samsung has all of the buttons on one side. So if you really ever ask yourself like what helps Samsung sometimes put in something like more battery in similarly sized devices, it's that they're willing to go for compromises like this because it's not ergonomically well feeling, right? We've already complained about the action button on the 15 Pro, but imagine what it is like to have your power button and your volume buttons on the same side, and you also have like the millimeter wave antenna protrusion, I guess, the opening here. So yeah, they put a lot onto this side, so I guess they could like jam pack the other side full of just like internal components and not have to like fight against any mechanisms that push into the device. I know like modern buttons don't take up as much space as one might think, but it's still a compromise. Hello? Yeah, I want to zoom out. The front, yeah, we are seeing very slim symmetrical bezels. Again, if we compare it here against the 15 Pro, it's a very similar look. Obviously, we have the dynamic island here. Here we have just a singular cutout. Supposedly, these bezels are now even smaller than like the 1.55 millimeters here. I see it being addressed as 1.7 millimeters. Maybe that's exactly how much they measure if you account for like this very small curvature that floats into the titanium chassis, and maybe with Samsung being like 100% flat, it will actually allow them to be ever so slightly smaller. But I don't think it's a perceivable difference, and I don't think this will matter in the end. I've said before that to me the bezels of the 13 Pro, like the 12 Pro, the 13 Pro have already been small enough, and anything better like the 14 Pro and now the 15 Pro are just nice to have things. It's not something that I ever would base my decision on for buying. Any Namus, exactly, it would be such a cool Apple move. Oh, and I rocked my phone without case, didn't think of that. Maybe it can work through cases, or they will have cutouts and such. Yeah, I think if Apple will do something like that, they'll just do their own, I guess at this point, fine woven cases. Maybe they could also change the material for that the next year. I guess they would just do that with cutouts. And I assume this would allow them to bring some other functionality. Like some people have argued it could even like have some kind of scrolling mechanism where you like swipe on the volume buttons and that makes them louder or more silent, I guess. So there's a lot that we could see here. Again, we've also had like rumors about like almost like a second action button on the other side, basically, which is interesting. Wait, is that it? Is that what they put on the actual image here? I think they did. They're incorporating the rumor already that there was like this question of having like another button on the other side of the side where the power button is. Oh, they actually incorporated it. Well, imagine how crazy that is. That would be, right? Look at this. You would have like a power button on the Samsung and volume buttons that are integrated into one, right? Okay. Let's just say power button, volume buttons, right? On the iPhone, that would be power button, volume buttons, action button, and potentially a second, maybe just camera button or something like that. That would be just insane. I wonder though, like if that would go against them going for. It's interesting though, right? I don't know if they have anything inside the chassis to really facilitate the strong haptics that the action button ends up having, right? It's not like they relocated the haptics from here up to there, but it feels really good. So I wonder if the haptics they have could be good enough to like power every button almost, or they just put in like a haptic feedback thing around where the volume buttons and where the action button would be, and then maybe one on this side that would either like ring here if it's something on the, if you're pressing the power button, or ring a little closer to this side, or vibrate, I guess is the more correct term, if you're engaging with like the camera button. Again, I have said before, I am skeptical of this rumor. I think this is probably prototype shit that will never come to market, because giving up any internal space for any extra buttons is kind of an insane thing to do. But hell, Apple sometimes does insane things. So, okay. What do you want to say to me? Say hello to little Bella, if you can see her. So we can, I think, zoom out a little at this point. We can full zoom. Okay, good. Yeah, you still cannot see her, can you? Unfortunately, I'll just briefly show her to you then. Are you my little cutie? She will start fighting me. Yep, she already does. My God, why don't you like hugging? Like, she likes hugging on her own terms. Like, when I'm lying in bed and she just lies on top of me. Yeah, that's something she likes. But God forbid I actually, like, want to hug with her for a few seconds. So, the flat edge gives a sharp transition between the display and the side of the design. Yeah, I guess. And it's frankly a good look. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it was made by some good designers, just not Samsung designers. Are the haptics stronger overall on your 15 Pro Max? Not stronger than my 13 Pro Max. By all accounts, I think what they did is they shrunk down the like the haptic motors, but I think they're going with motors that are disproportionately like stronger to their size, which means that you pretty much get almost the same feeling. But then again, I don't think I really need stronger haptics than were in my 13 Pro Max. I think haptics have been pretty good on the iPhone almost since their inception, right? I don't really think they really need something else. If anything, I would like for them to sacrifice some space to bring 3D touch back rather than add even more haptic motors, because in my opinion they're quite good. They don't feel like I guess they don't feel three-dimensional, you could say, in the sense that Apple could go for like you know, like several haptic motors that are pretty small, but they're positioned throughout the device, or maybe it's just one at the top, one at the bottom, and then they like vibrate accordingly to where you press, or even which button exactly you press. So I think that could add a little to the experience. I think more so than just giving it stronger haptics. So also confirmed here is the size of the Galaxy S24, which is slightly different from the S23 at 147 times 70.5 times 7.6 millimeters. Now, if we compare that, I will compare it to just the Pros. For one, I do have a graph, but the other point is I think the Pros are the more relevant comparison point. I think the people who buy the non-Pros just people who want a new iPhone, and they basically accept that what they are buying might not even be the best value, but it's the best value for them because it still keeps them in the ecosystem. It works perfect with their AirPods, maybe their Apple TV if they have like it, with their iCloud storage obviously, and of course if you're in North America, then you really care if you're a green or a blue bubble. So the regular S24 would be 147, so it would be a little less tall. Yeah, let's compare it to the 15 Pro, I guess. Then it would be a little more tall than the 15 Pro, but less so than supposedly the rumors we have for the 16 Pro. It would be 70.5 millimeter wide, which would be around the same as the 15 Pro, slightly less so than on the 16 Pro, and then it would be 7.6 millimeters thick, which obviously would be thinner than what we now have on the Pros, or what we'll likely get on next year's Pro, which seem to maintain the same thickness. Would you say endgame iPhone is buttonless, notchless, and portless? That's my dream phone. I don't really care about portless, because to me the amount of space that like a simple port takes up is not really a compromise, because ports are multifunctional, right? Ports give power, ports transfer data, ports connect to external displays, and ports don't just give power to your phone, they give power to maybe an accessory that actually needs it. So to me, the ideal phone is likely not portless, unless we get something like maybe like a MagSafe adapter that connects to like the UWB and NFC and Wi-Fi modems, and then gives you output fast enough to do like HDMI 2.1 speeds, but that's really like far-fetched. And then there's also always the question of like other interference, how much exactly energy it would draw. So portless, no. Buttonless, I guess, if they are done right. I honestly believe a lot in Apple's ability to make like non-buttons feel like buttons. Like, I'm using a MacBook Pro after all, with a strong like haptic motor under the trackpad, right? And when it comes to notchless, well, we technically are notchless, but I guess you could say cutoutless. Yeah, probably. I just don't give a shit, honestly. Which, if it can be done in a way that doesn't compromise camera quality, like when you look at, for example, the under-display camera on the Galaxy Fold, it's trash. Most under-display cameras are pretty trash. So if I would have to accept like a small black circle on the screen, it honestly isn't a big issue to me. So I guess to a degree I agree with you on almost every point. I think portless is the one thing where I'm closest to disagreeing, unless technology actually develops that would allow for a similar experience as we currently have thanks to real ports. But yeah, in terms of buttons, I agree. I think it can be done really well. And in terms of notchless, I do believe that we can obviously get something better than the dynamic island at the very least. So the S23 was shorter but wider, so it seems like we would really have like about the same screen size. This display is said to be 6.17 inches. I think it's advertised as like 6.2, right? So no weight measures, unfortunately, on the iPhone. Again, we are supposedly getting we are supposedly getting heavier with the 15 Pro to the 16 Pro, adding 6 grams from 187 to 194. I really hope a lot of that is going into a larger battery. And when you actually look at the Pro Max versus the 15 Pro Max versus the 16 Pro Max, you'll find that the weight difference here is only 4 grams. That to me leads to believe that 4 grams is about the difference that we are getting thanks to the devices getting larger, and we are getting a disproportionately higher weight increase on the non-Max Pros, because this is the generation where they will both the Pro and the Pro Max will have the 5x tetra prism camera, and I think by going with that we will have pretty much we'll have pretty much like feature parity in terms of cameras, finally, again. In terms of weight, again, we don't have anything for the base S24, but we also have, with the display size, we have the same 6.17 inches here. Here on the iPhone 15 Pro, we go up from 6.1 inches to 6.3 inches, and on the Pro Max, we're moving from 6.7 to 6.9. I should also say that those rumors are like, where do they actually come from? It's supposedly like reporting that Mac Rumors has done directly, which is interesting. Let's see. It's obviously very preliminary. It can change, like, if Apple can change like the battery almost like last minute to a degree, as long as they can get it produced fast enough, but they can change capacity by ever so slightly small amounts, and then that either adds a gram or two or takes away a gram or two, as long as they just have the internal space. And quite honestly, they probably do have the internal space. Like the iPhone 15 Pro is pretty thick in comparison to like the 14 Pro, so the 1%, the 2% battery increases honestly could have been more substantial, and it wouldn't take too much internal redesign to give us slightly larger batteries or more cooling and things like that. Also, even the thickness by itself can change. Like at this stage, Apple could be pretty much using almost the exact bodies of the 15 Pro to just like, I guess we would be beyond like the alpha design stage, but like early prototyping stage, and I guess we could see something that is like a 1/10 of a millimeter thicker or something like that. Amy, yeah, I agree with you. Another question, if you don't mind. Do you find the dynamic island on your phone more or less or the same, distracting as the notch? I find it about the same. I honestly never cared about the notch. I think it's very well positioned. I think it's well integrated with the software. The only thing that I found is I think I've gotten that wrong in a prior video where I've said that the dynamic island cuts into 21:9 into 20:9 videos, or is it? No, it's 18:9 videos. It's 2:1, right? That's something what like Linus Tech Tips does, right? And I thought it cuts into videos on the Pro, on the 14 Pro, but not the 14 Pro Max. But even on my 15 Pro Max, which obviously has the exact same display dimensions and dynamic island dimension as the 14 Pro Max, it does cut a little bit into that type of content. Very little content that I watch is that, so it doesn't really bother me at all. And for regular things, I do believe I slightly prefer it over the notch, because it obviously is like more immersive, because you have stuff on top of the dynamic island and below the dynamic island, while obviously on the notch was just an intrusion into your screen, right? Almost like an invader from the top. But with the dynamic island, it's more like I guess like a little imperfection in the screen, but one you grow to really be accustomed with. And I love the software stuff of the dynamic island. I think the animations are beautiful. I think even the haptics, if you like press it, are amazing. So yeah, I do prefer the dynamic island. Functionally, visually, I don't really care that much. because that upper space to me is just designed for extra stuff, you know, the time, your cellular connectivity, stuff like that. I don't really see it as like a highly functional part of the screen. And during gaming, I've played like COD Mobile. I found it pretty much identical to the notch, where it protrudes farther because it obviously still has the small gap of top display on top of it, but it is overall smaller than the notch, so it's pretty much identical. And the buttons are still, the software buttons are still positioned well, and they adjust obviously to where you touch. So yeah, I didn't find like any negative real impact, except for very wide YouTube videos. But it won't be the only design change. According to ICE Universe, the S23 and S23 Plus will take up the challenge of beating the small display bezels, which again, interesting. We're not talking about the, I assume though they really wanted to say S24 and S24 Plus. Once you are working with so many numbers, I can kind of understand why you get a little confused though. Apple made headlines for its super slim bezels on the latest iPhone, and it's a good look in person. Does this writer use that? And it's a good look often, right? And it's frankly a good look, and it's a good look in person. Yeah, they do have a writing style. Samsung though will apparently slightly beat it, while Apple's total bezel size measures 2.7 millimeter, 1.7 millimeter on the display itself. I have no idea how that is measured, to be quite honest. Samsung will hit 2.5 millimeter in total by being 1.5 millimeter on the display. The bezels will apparently be symmetrical as well. ICE also offered up dimensions and a few specs for the entire series. With the let's compare this S24 Plus versus the Pro Max. That is 158.5. So that is about the same as the Pro Max, but less so than the 16 Pro Max, which I guess makes sense, right? It has a 6.7-inch screen similar to the Pro Max, not to the 15 Pro Max, not the 16 Pro Max, times 75.9, so that is less wide than the 15 Pro Max is, times 7.7, so it's thinner. And then the 6.8-inch Galaxy S24 Ultra, it would be 162.3, so that is taller than the 15 Pro Max, and pretty much what we expect from the 16 Pro Max, times 78.1, so it would be wider than either the 15 Pro Max or the 16 Pro Max, and then it's yeah, right, it's 79. Oh, so at 79 millimeters would actually be, yeah, noticeably wider. And then 8.6 millimeter thick, which would be also thicker than the current Pro Max and the expected 16 Pro Max. Any names, you're gonna rewind and watch the whole stream. See you. Consider leaving a super chat if you feel like it. And then if you compare to the S23 Plus, it was basically smaller in every way, except for, well, no, it was wider than the S24 Plus is supposed to get, but supposedly the slimmer bezels will be helping here, while the S23 Ultra is taller than the S24 Ultra is supposed to be. But it's less wide, so it's really like inconsistent increases and decreases. Here, like the height goes up with the new version, but the width decreases. Here, the height goes down, but the width but the width increases. So, and the thickness goes down. This is really inconsistent to the point of being a little confusing, but I guess the Ultra really doesn't do the same kind of design change as the others, and I'm not happy with it being wider. Like, I was so happy with like the Pro Max finally getting like a width reduction. That was like my biggest problem with like slightly thicker bezels. I don't think they're visually a problem at all, but I think that the width of the 16 Pro Max will also be perfectly acceptable. This is less than a millimeter difference, but to me the biggest advantage of slim bezels is relatively large displays in not so wide devices. The height pretty much doesn't matter to me at all. I don't care that it's like significantly taller or anything. I use reachability anyway. So Samsung's bigger phones are getting a bit thicker this year. Battery capacity on the big phones is said to be 4900 and 5000 milliampere hours respectively. So I kind of expected the 5000 milliampere hours to go up a little, like maybe with using stacked batteries, and then there are 4000 milliampere hours in the base Galaxy S24. They also added like S24 Ultra renders, which if we look at it, I mean, it looks very similar. I guess they've changed like the bezel ever so slightly, like the edge here, where it feels like, apparently it's like ever so slightly still rounded, but to the point where it's almost imperceivable. That's how I got it from the leaks. It's hard to tell. They put in the same camera config on the back. There is some rumors that we might get very different cameras in terms of like the zoom, so we might only need one instead of two. But again, it's hard to actually like, I hope that we'll get like leaks about that in the next couple of weeks and months, things like that. So I actually don't quite remember S23 Plus specs, I guess. Yeah, I think GSM Arena is actually a good website for this. When we actually look at it, how big was the battery? Well, the weight's actually okay. It's pretty comparable to the Plus iPhones. How big is the battery here? It's 4700 milliampere hours, right? So the battery would go up in the S24 Plus. Kind of makes sense if it's getting a little thicker. It's a very small difference, but it's still like something that could be nice. And then on the S23, I think this is the same battery size as before. It's also a little larger. It's up from 3900 to 4000. Okay, so there definitely seems to be a battery increase. And if we go with the S23 Ultra, we'll find the same 5000 milliampere hours. So yeah, actually interesting. I think this will catapult the non-Ultra devices into being definitely more relevant than they used to be. Is there like actually like new rumors here? Right? And then there's the 24 followed suit. The eagle-eyed among you may have realized there's one member of the family missing. Oh, we got like actual like CAD files for that. Wait, but where is the S24 Ultra here? Yeah, well, that's the design. That's not actual CAD leaks. We'll add an ultra-wideband antenna in the upcoming flagship. There is already an ultra-wideband chip in the S23 Ultra. It just isn't on the regular ones. The report continues to say that Samsung will add a titanium alloy to the phone's build, resulting in a 233-gram phone, which is 1 gram lighter than the current model. Per the report, the Galaxy S23 Ultra will measure 1/6. Is that times 17.7? So it's not the exact same thing. Was this like put onto the website wrongly? It makes it shorter but wider than the S23 Ultra. Okay. The report said that Samsung has reduced the bezels and that the phone will have one of the narrowest bezels on the phone. They'll be symmetrical, which means that the bottom bezel will finally match the rest, which is very, very positive. There are 4 cameras on the back in the same arrangement, a nearly identical rectangular shape with flat tops and bottoms and a lightly curved side frame. So that kind of goes against some other rumors that we've heard about potentially like a lot of camera changes, but it really seems to be like we might not get as exciting of a camera generation upgrade as we might have hoped. So let's see if there's anything else here. Guys, I try to grow with you as I also learn about the competition. A lot about this, especially the competition that I myself am interested in. So I'm not as well prepared in terms of like prior knowledge. And this also will lead, like with the iPhone, I know about every rumor basically, and I know which rumors contradict each other. But with Samsung, I know about certain rumors, but I don't know how credible they are in comparison to others, and I don't know just how much weight is currently being put on by the community into which rumor, right? So something like that bigger bezel rumor that existed for a while, well, it existed on a lot of websites, but it seems to be like almost like one-time reporting that was then like copy pasta to everything else. I think this is way more realistic. I think this makes way more sense. I think this is way more competitive. But yeah, so it takes me a while sometimes to digest that. And when it comes to cameras, I've seen so many different rumors at this point that I'm honestly a little confused. So like we've had, for example, like the brighter bezels, right? The brighter display. And that to me makes perfect sense, because this would likely coincide with a next gen version of LTPO. Samsung would probably use like the best cooling they ever had in a smartphone to really accommodate that. By the way, this is not true what some people are reporting. It's actually good that I'm on GSM Arena here, right? Because GSM Arena does a couple of things really well. One is display testing. So when we actually look at display brightness, you'll find that in auto mode, the iPhone actually comes close to its advertised 2000 nits of brightness. Samsung, people often claim that Samsung phones reach 1750 nits. That is not true. They reach 1750 nits as a peak brightness point in a small area in HDR content. When we actually look at basically full display brightness, right, 70% fill. So what do we get here? We get 1250 essentially, and we get that across the latest. We get that across the entire generation of. I don't know if like the LTPO screens in the like Xiaomi 13 Ultra are similarly like old, I guess, as like in the S23 Ultra. I know the S23 Ultra has been like reusing the same panel, but you have to, or if it's really just that Apple's display controllers are that good and that efficient. But it seems to be like a new LTPO generation finally will overcome that 1250, not 1750 peak, basically all screen brightness for outdoor usage. And I don't know if it's actually going to be 2500 nits for outdoor usage, but it's like, do they have testing for the Oppo Find X here? That would be interesting to know. Oppo Find X6 Pro. My god, the branding gets like review. Oh yeah, they do have it. Display. How bright does it get? It gets up to 1380 in max auto mode. So yeah, don't come at me. Those ratings are really out of whack. Like, and it's not like inconsistent. Look at where the iPhone is. And if you're telling me that sometimes, oh, you have to be like in super specific scenarios, yeah, I don't believe that for a second. By the way, like with the iPhone, it's been like repeatedly reproducible on every website that actually puts some effort effort into testing displays. So I don't believe that Samsung will probably exceed necessarily like even like the 1800 nits that the iPhone reaches, or it will like match it. Maybe it will give you 2000 nits of like auto max brightness, and then 2500 nits is probably going to be the brightness for HDR content. Now, the reason why the iPhone is not rated higher is because Apple does not let HDR individual bright spots go up over 1600 nits, and I think this is done for a combination of like color science stuff. Once you really go outside, like even over 1000 nits can be hard to really color match the displays, or not color match it, but like keep the color accuracy high. But if you go up to 2000 nits, 2500 nits, I'm sure Apple would be capable of doing so, but it's extra effort and it would detract from the optimized HDR experience they've already created. It would also be potentially like almost blindingly bright in scenarios where you don't really need it. So yeah, like honestly, HDR over 2000 nits, kind of a questionable need for that. I think Apple over time will probably add that as a feature just to differentiate the pros over the non-pros, because the pros now happen to have the same tech, the same brightness on the panels, even though they use LTPS panels and not LTPO. But yeah, this is actually like, I just want to bring this up so it doesn't seem like I'm hating Samsung. This is actual testing from an actual like Samsung, like Android friendly website, and by all accounts the iPhone is absolutely unbeaten. So apparently the S24 Ultra will retain a 6.8-inch AMOLED, so that will be, supposedly, if we go back to the 16 Pro, that one is now 6.9 inches. So Apple will bridge the gap and actually be taller. Oh, and they're switching to 3120 by 1440, which would be a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio. I don't want to open Twitter. I just pushed cancel. The fuck? Oh yeah, and by the way, they went with like the big bezel thing for a while. It would be 6.78 inches across. It doesn't say what exactly the display. The 16 Pro Max will be 6.85, so it will be noticeably larger. Not it's like game changing, but fascinating. It 19.5 by I guess that was supposed to say 19.5 by 9. This is why I think that Twitter leakers are sometimes funny, because they don't put like, it's such a short tweet, you really couldn't proofread it. But like iPhone's aspect ratio, it's 19.5 by 9 basically. It's like ever so slightly off from that. But like Samsung, I believe, was taller, so now this is a slightly wider aspect ratio, which will basically match the iPhone look in that regard. What the Galaxy, in my opinion, has over the iPhone is that the display is less curved on them, especially on the Ultra, and I actually think this is a good look for productivity. I think this makes it like more viable to really have like large full screen content, while on the iPhone a part will be cut off, obviously, if you like yeah, because most content is like rectangular, and having those super curved screens will cut off some of that content. So yeah, so we got pretty much everything out of this. We will talk about the 16 Pros for a short time, which is if we continue that Mac rumors thing, as far as materials are concerned, the 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max are expected to maintain the same grade 5 titanium. I wouldn't be surprised if Apple downgrades it a little and uses an alloy that has like more aluminum inside to make it a little softer and stuff like that, just so that they can be better shock absorbent in that regard. So maybe the back glass glass shatters less. I know there are some other theories, maybe that Apple is using somewhat different back glass that maybe prioritizes scratch resistance over breaking. Maybe it's a little thinner. I have not found out any facts to that regard, but we'll see. Maybe the internal aluminum structure changed to a degree, maybe also to make the phone a little lighter, and that like adds less structural like strength to the display. But yeah, so we have a lot of different theories, what I'm trying to say. With the same brushed finish and curved design, similar to the base model 16, the 16 Pro is also expected to feature a slightly larger action button, and entirely new, and this goes back to what Amy was asking, a capacitive capture button. But I don't know if I will believe it. It's like they themselves saying this is remarkably early, and again, like, do we actually have, like, I don't know, is it called stacked batteries actually? No, I think I forgot what it's called. It's like that new battery like arrangement basically. Is it called stacked batteries on the iPhone? Nope. Wait, huh? Oh, it didn't look search at all. Wait, I cannot. What? It doesn't work. It's completely broken. 16 stacked batteries. Is it called this way? A stacked battery has less wasted space and hence bigger capacity. Galaxy S24. But then again, the new Galaxies also are larger, right? Which means that they actually do have enough more internal space for a battery with the same kind of like density. So if we actually if we actually had stacked batteries, I kind of would expect capacities to go up across the entire generation. But yeah, this is basically a technology that ways are the websites, so like not like the websites you would usually expect, but like guess we'll go with India today. I hope there aren't too many ads. And not that I have anything against Indian websites, it's just I usually don't frequent them, so I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like India Today kind of sounds like more reputable, and websites like this usually ask for a lot more like ads, or for you to deliberately agree to ads, while smaller websites are sometimes as long as they're still fully legal and stuff, they're sometimes afraid to like mandate you activate ads or something like that. HT Tech, can I see that here? As per the leaked information, RGC Cloud, Apple will use stacked battery technology from, it's used in electric vehicles with the iPhone 16 series. Not just that, the same battery technology is expected to be used for the two top-end models of the S24 series, S24 Plus and S24 Ultra. Well, I guess you could make the point that maybe like the Plus is going up from 4700 to 4900, and at that point the differentiation and then maybe the Ultra would still keep 5000 milliampere hours, but use like a smaller battery to have more internal space for things like of course the S Pen, but also to improve speaker quality, things like that. Also, look at this, like some things are just garbage. 16 Ultra with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. The 15 Pro Max has 8 gigs of RAM and the base starting price of 128. Also, why is there a notch? What? So stacked battery tech refers to a production process where pole piles, pieces, and battery separators are arranged in alternating layers to create a multi-layer stacked pole core. This approach enables higher energy density while using space more efficiently due to the curvature at the winding corner. Additionally, the cycle life is improved. With more taps in the cell battery, the electron transmission distance is reduced, leading to low resistance and reduced internal resistance in the stacked battery. Overall, stacked battery technologies offers enhanced performance and efficiency compared to traditional battery designs. I think this is a good summary. This is basically how I learned about it. So the other point is, I finally would like to talk about like, there is nothing here, right? Can I click on the S24 Ultra? Right. What do they say? So the launch date. The Exynos debate, right? It's been like ongoing for a while. Now we know the 16 Pro and Pro Max will definitely have an A18 Pro based on N3E and stuff like that. I've covered that to death in some of my prior videos. But let's look at the Galaxy S24, which some of it going back to Exynos. So all S23 models use a slightly overclocked Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and people are liking it. Right before that, we had overheating, bizarre software bugs, poor battery life, and more have afflicted in the chips. Right. But we do have the Exynos 2400, which supposedly will make a comeback for Exynos in general in the next gen of Samsung phones. It is coming from Ice Universe, so again, so did the rumors about the potential much larger bezels on the S24 Ultra, but he is known, or this person is known, to correct themselves, so I'll not hold that against them forever. The change will at least apply in Europe, where Exynos chips were used in the past. Well, Europe is a big market, it's where I live. Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 is rumored to be considerably more expensive than its predecessors, to the point where some OEMs are rumored to be using older chips instead of upgrading. Beyond that, Samsung's chip processes have been improving, with the company's 4nm process reportedly now on par with TSMC's. Maybe it's like N5P, but I doubt that their 4nm is good enough to compete with N4P. It's nothing against Samsung, but Samsung isn't even putting that much money into improving 4nm at this point. They're just I think they got like a few more EUV layers in, right? I mean, which is good. I'm not denying that. And like the yields have improved, but overall, like they are working on 3nm GAAFET. They are not really like doubling down their investments into their own 4nm. And the 3nm node perhaps even surpassing it. Maybe I actually wouldn't put it past Samsung to surpass N3B and maybe even the lower density N3Es. But I do believe that by the time Samsung comes out, TSMC will be close to launching N3P, and that will likely be once again better. Again, this is highly optimistic. We do not have any actual numbers that yields are anywhere good enough to actually compete in a reasonable time frame against N3B. So let's see. Maybe we'll have some overlap where Samsung's first 3nm GAAFET chips compete with N3E. But also, like, big kudos to TSMC, where their 3nm still FinFET node will apparently really well compete with Samsung's GAAFET. And then once TSMC switches to 2nm GAAFET, yeah, I don't really think that Samsung will have a lot to beat them, at least. So the Exynos 2400 will be a considerably better chip than, say, the 2200. Yeah. The problem with that is that the chip is more than its process node. It's also, of course, the architecture, and I just simply don't know if Samsung expertise is up to Qualcomm's. What are they actually saying? Which models would be actually getting it? If Exynos could return... Wait, which models? Like, some have said it might not be for the Ultra. Some said that the Ultra might actually get, like... Wait, what? That's all? There's nothing on the website after this? Does it only see all stories? Well, that's... Jesus, some websites are, like, really done weirdly. Really? There are no more S20... What? Slated for larger battery. Really? There is not more than 5 articles? See all stories. Oh my god, dude, this is like terrible. So I'll just I'll just go back to GSM Arena for a second. They usually have a lot of new leaks compiled on there. Also, by the way, I apologize for covering up like my left part of the screen. I'll move myself away from where my face probably is. I forgot that sometimes, but so the S24 rumored dimension, okay. Qualcomm introduces next gen AR. Oh, okay. We'll have more. Oh my god. We have Pixel 8 Pro leaks. Ah, Jesus. Front camera 60 Hz. Pixel 8. Oh, we actually have like comparison points. Actua display and super Actua display. We have G3. Okay, there isn't that much actually. Wait, are there more pages here? Okay. Yeah, I think I'll this will be worth reacting to. I'll just briefly try to find if there's anything yeah, look, by the way, this is an Android-friendly website. Google mocks the iPhone 15 Pro Max and latest ad, thinks the Pixel 8 Pro will get more hype. Google is hilariously delusional with this one, 100%. Apple to cut 3nm chips as orders for 2024. Don't know. iPhone 15 Pro in for review. Really? We like, where was it? Galaxy S24 Ultra. Can I not get like proper like, really? Here, this was what I was talking about. Samsung has offered a periscope sensor with 10x optical zoom for 3 years in a row, starting with the Galaxy S21 Ultra, but it seems that will come to an end next year. Noted tipster Ice Universe reports that the S24 Ultra will only offer 3x and 5x telephoto sensors. As per the leakster, the S24 Ultra will bring in a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto sensor and a new 50 megapixel 1 by 2.52 sensor with 0.7 micrometer pixels, offering 5x optical zoom. So I think that still would be a little that would be larger as a sensor than what we have in the 15 Pro Max 5x stuff. Despite its shorter zoom range, the new 50 megapixel telephoto module will likely offer a significant boost in image quality, especially if they also get like a really nice wide aperture on it. We previously got info that the S24 Ultra will reportedly offer a new 200 megapixel ISOCELL HP2SX main sensor, coming in at 1 by 1.3 inches in size and offering native 4x1 and 16:1 pixel binning, as well as super quad face detection autofocus. We're also expecting the same all 12 megapixel ultra wide and front facing cameras. Yikes, that's disappointing, I guess. And then the last point, so this is probably, like, this is what I really wanted to say. Like, there's so much uncertainty in the rumor space of the latest Samsungs. Like, look, not too long ago, 23rd of August, that was when we had, like, still, like, huge bezel stuff. And then we still had like stuff like the S24 Ultra supposedly starting it with 128 gigabytes. And then we had like on the 30th of August that the Galaxy S24 Ultra will only have a Snapdragon chip, while previously it was rumored to also keep get the new Exynos chip. But now that's supposedly only happening for the S24 and S24 Plus. So you know what I mean? It gets like really confusing. And like 15th of August, 50 megapixel telephoto. That is 3x 50 megapixel sensor. Wait, what? That's why it was initially rumored that S24 Ultra adopted a 5x sensor. Some will emphasize the 5-inch image quality of the sensor thanks to the 3x 50 megapixel zoom. Oh, wait, what? So according to this one, Samsung was supposedly only getting one new but now they have both a 3x and a 5x. So this changed, right? The Geekbench are, which Geekbench is 6.1? Is it higher? 22, 23. Yeah, so yeah, this is higher. The iPhone is at 2900 and a little over 7000, 7200. Yeah, it compares nicely. It's actually not too dissimilar improvement to what the iPhone got in terms of single core and multi-core. This is more significant. Yeah, so it's hard to tell. With ray trace, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 got ray tracing. I'm like, I read it as Gen 3 for a second. Comes with 3.7 gigahertz prime cores. Wait, what? Did we get like an already Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, like any specifications for it? Yeah, we did. So what does the cluster of chips look like here? I think that's important to know for me. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 compute platform is designed to deliver extreme productivity and entertainment with a 5nm architecture. So it's not necessarily N4P? No, that's 8CX Gen 3. My god. Okay, I got confused there for a second. No, so we don't have we don't have actually anything new here, right? No. When is the does anybody know when the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 announcement actually is coming? Oh, I clicked on the same website. I'm so stupid. Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 benchmarked in narrow chip with superior cooling is still slower than A17 Pro in single core and multi-core test. Oh, that was like actively cooled. Well, that could be like a problem for Samsung because not sure if they would actually be able to deliver that. What clock speed is that? One core is 3.19 gigahertz. Okay, that is suspiciously low. Maybe there really isn't that much of a big improvement though. Yeah, maybe, but then again, that would consume a lot of energy to push that like to 3.5 gigahertz or something like that. The S24 Ultra Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 rumored to be throttling due to poor cooling, resulting in a multi-core performance loss. That's relatively new as an article. It could lose between 5 to 6% in multi-core results. It was achieved in Geekbench 6, which managed to obtain just 7,200 points. However, according to a rumor shared by Mohammed Fadria Fanani on X, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 may be prone to thermal trend. Quite honestly, when I read stuff like this to me reads like a lot of bullshit. Like people try to like leak something that they didn't really know. Maybe they leaked like results that were extremely early, and now they're backpedaling on it. Yeah, I maybe if Apple had like come out with a chip that got close to 8,000, they would be like sticking by 7400. But now when people expect that this would result in a higher result than the iPhone, they have to backpedal on it. They have to like recontextualize their reporting. Yeah, this is not what I want. Basically, this is not the kind of reporting that I like. To me, this just seems fake. Origin unknown. Hey man, long time no see, or long time no see for in an actual like stream. So I guess this is N4P is good enough and fairly affordable. Yeah. So the context here is really. It's really contentious because some of those early results really don't line up with some of the expectations for the clock speed and the thermal stuff. I obviously cannot say anything about that. I think these results are incredibly realistic. If you manage cooling well, if you manage performance well, I think you can get this kind of multi-core improvement, and single core just isn't going up that much. It's just one core that really does this result result, while Apple has 2 of their performance cores. So yeah, I wouldn't really focus on anything where they set like 7,400 points in Geekbench 6. Again, I've outlined that there are a ton of inconsistent reports when it comes to cameras. Getting replaced with a 5x telephoto. Oh my god, the further you go back, like the more nonsensical it gets. When we go back a little more, I think I've closed basically most of the stuff that we did before. So yeah, you see, there is so much to cover with the iPhone 16 Pro. I guess this is the last point that I might do. We've covered like Samsung specs, right? iPhone 16 Pro larger sensor. I've covered this a while back. Yeah, it's a stacked camera sensor design, which again, I'm not an expert on this, but it is already in the iPhone 15, which I think is what partially allows it to have a relatively wide aperture, like it's f1.6 versus f1.8 on the 15 Pros. But this obviously comes before this was actually announced. So when we actually look at the actual rumors, is the increased size of next year's 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max allows for upgrade, including a periscope telephoto camera, which again we now know to be tetraprism, and it now will be coming to the Pro, while it's already in the Pro Max. It will be a 12% larger main camera sensor. Now, how large exactly would it go? By the way, this improvement is a little larger than that, because you also have to account for that it's a change in diagonal. It's not like just a change in the actual surface area. I think the surface area would go up by more. So we are going up from 1 by 1.28, which is actually larger than the 1 by 1.3 than the Samsung sensor. So don't come at me with 200 megapixel, bro, it's so much better. And this would now go with 1 by 1.4. So the next gen's iPhone main sensor will likely be larger than the main sensor of the S24 Ultra, and of course then the previous S23 Ultra and such. And when we actually look at the telephoto, iPhone 16 Pro Max, 48 megapixel 5x, I think. There's supposedly a 48 megapixel ultra wide, which is interesting because supposedly Samsungs are getting 50 megapixel on the telephoto, but still keeping the same old ultra wide, while iPhones are supposedly getting much higher quality ultra wides. But we haven't yet heard if the 5x, if the sensor for the 5x zoom gets a lot better. So this is so confusing but so interesting to really digest this way. It's been like over an hour stream, so I feel comfortable in reminding you guys, if you haven't yet subscribed, please consider subscribing, consider liking and sharing this video if you're enjoying it. Consider of course just being engaged on this platform with me, writing chats, leaving super chats and super stickers if you feel like it. And of course you can follow me on Twitter or support me directly on Patreon if you choose to do so. So the actual, like, even like this, right, Galaxy S24 Ultra, right, Wi-Fi 7, is that something coming to the next gen? And supposedly, well, but that is like an old rumor at this point, right? That's like a year-old rumor at this point. So, but we haven't heard that much of it. Now, Wi-Fi 7, in my opinion, it will probably take like half a decade until a reasonable amount of homes actually feature it with like their routers and stuff. And it's also speed that like most service providers simply don't offer for regular homes. So I really don't know what the utility of it would be. It would offer extreme peer-to-peer connectivity, but peer-to-peer connectivity is not as crucial on Android, where things like AirDrop are not as common. Like I know there's like an equivalent feature, I believe, but it's not used the same way. And then again, would you really want to spend a lot more money on a more expensive modem and much better antennas that you would actually need for those speeds, just so you could transfer data faster from one device to the other, something that you could also do with a cable? It's hard to tell. So yeah, I've promised you guys last time that I think I might react to Max Tech's like S23 Ultra versus iPhone 15 Pro Max camera comparison, and I think I'll do so right now, because I'm not sure if I'll be able to stream tomorrow. So I think this will actually be like an interesting thing to wrap up, and it's will like solidify my points on why I actually believe that Samsung really needs a next gen Ultra that again beats the iPhone. So by the way, I have like 70 dropped frames over the stream, which is 0% technically. It's not even enough to be labeled as 0.1%, because the 5G from my iPad is so freaking stable. So, and apparently my CPU doesn't have any problems either, and I'm using just 8%. So my Mac is awesome, my 5G from my iPad is awesome. Just wanted to say that I've finally been able to solve a lot of problems. So let's get started with this. Yes, let's explain. Let me explain to you why I believe that Samsung really needs a new flagship.
Oh, look at that, guys.
As always, please let me know if the audio is alright and stuff like that.
It's the Demon. Welcome to our unbiased camera comparison between the iPhone 15 Pro Max,
S23 Ultra,
and the Pixel 7 Pro.
And the reason this is the unbiased test is because Max actually went out and took a bunch of photos which none of us have seen. So we're going to be looking at them and judging which one is the best.
So get out a piece of paper and a pen or your phone. Play along with us and let us know your results in the comments.
All right, let's get into the first one. And this looks like a pretty far range zoom.
So I'll have to move my face a lot in those images. Well, the sharpness on the left seems to be absolutely like the best. The warm colors actually seem to be more correct for like a field of wheat. And yeah, it's the left one for me for sure. I'll actually make a tabulation here, which is like iPhone, Samsung, and Pixel, and I'll just collect which one has the most points, right?
Portrait shot.
I definitely like the one on the left the most. The one on the right, there's so much detail that's lost, and the one in the center is just terrible.
Yep, I agree. It's horrible in the center. Like, look at all the compression, everything, like all the issues, like artifacts.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with both of you. The one on the left looks absolutely the best.
Yep, so we all agree that it's the left. And by the way, guys, this is my friend and a fan of the channel, Johnny. He's here with us.
Hi, Johnny.
Kind of spice it up a little bit.
You can see my friend of the show behind me.
15 Pro Max
Say hi, Bella.
Is the one on the left.
Okay, so the iPhone gets a point.
And now we have the next
By the way,
This
I
looks
did
like
not
one
pre-watch the video. I did not pre-watch the video. And I'll give you my honest results afterwards. So I actually think that's kind of interesting. So the iPhone has now 1 point for me.
Basic regular photo. Right off the bat, it looks like the center is kind of just...
Oh, it's... Wait, it's actually... Wait... I really cannot tell much of a difference. I think those are all great picks. Honestly, don't think there's a big problem with any one here. Why can't it didn't let me drop my face. I do like the more shadowy look on the left a little bit more. But I would have to zoom in to actually see the details. To be quite honest, this is basically a draw for me.
Really gray and washed out, like
Really
it's
flat.
too bright, like the colors are kind of gone. I mean, I've got to give it to the one on the right. I mean, I love the contrast, the trees, you got the darks, everything pops, nice and detailed as well.
Yeah, the one in the center is very, very flat. Between the left and the right, they're both super close.
Origin and on same, you like the one on the left. Yeah, but barely, right? Like, I agree that the one in the center is the worst, but honestly, between the one on the left and the one on the right, it's very much like an... Okay, you know what? I'll actually have a different system, which is, in some scenarios, I will also give, like, half points, which means I will give half points to where I believe it's a match between two things, or if I actually believe it's a complete draw and completely subjective, then I'll actually give a third of a point to a side. And to me, left and right get half a point. With ever so slightly, I would say I do prefer the left a little, but I think you could tune the right one to look pretty much the same.
I'm actually...
And also, like, they are showing a picture, they could just zoom in a little, right? If either the left or the right had significantly more detail, then I would probably agree on that
I'm gonna go
one.
with the one on the left. I like the brightness and the saturation.
For me, I really like the one on the right, very close to the one on the very left, but the one in the middle is definitely way too bright. The one on the right is my first pick.
Right one. All right, let's see. Right is Pixel 7 Pro.
Yeah, the iPhone had the worst image. I have no problem. You know what? So Samsung gets half a point, and the Pixel gets half a point. Absolutely no problem in admitting
15
that.
Pro Max in the middle. Wow, it did the worst. All right, the next. Oh, look at that, a cat. Wow, this almost looks like a really far 10x shot right here.
I really like the one on the left, just because how crisp it is.
Okay, I am actually gonna go for the right.
It's actually really hard for me to tell. Like, oh, this is difficult. Like, the left looks a little over sharpened, but like, those images in bright daylight. This is not how you test modern smartphones. Origin, what do you feel like? What's the best one here? Like, honestly, it's for me how... Like, I guess I would have to see the cat for real, right? To really compare it? To really know which one is more accurate? At the very least? Like, this is so weird. I honestly cannot say it here. Why don't they zoom in to show me which... Like, the left looks a little over-sharpened. Oh. Like, I really cannot decide between the center and the right. I really cannot. Like, I don't like the one on the left. It gets way too blackish for me for no reason, in my opinion. I don't think this is how the cat actually looked. I think there's a lot of over-sharpening going on in that image. I guess I'll make it a draw between the center and the right.
Funny.
I like how I do like how the cat kind of stands out more, and I do like how the colors of the eyes pop out more than the center, which is kind of washed out.
That's funny. I actually like the one in the center.
Oh, really?
I don't like the one on the left.
Yeah, I think, by the way, the fact that they're always disagreeing to this degree shows me just how much of a subjective issue this is. And I actually try to be really neutral in that regard. I could probably choose which one probably looks most like the iPhone and just cheat my way through it. But yeah, in this case, I guess maybe one has like a more natural, like, I guess the center has like ever so slightly maybe, well, no, like you like the center more, Origin? I think the center is ever so slightly better. I'll still make it a draw because I don't think there is a functional difference between the center and the right. I think if you captured either image, you would be equally happy. While with the left one, I actually don't like it. Like, it's way too contrasty in the wrong way. Like... Okay,
It's a little too
center and right.
sharpened and weird.
I'll stick by
The
it.
center and the right are both super close. I like the blur. They look really natural. But I feel like the center one looks the most accurate to real life. If I were
Hi,
to
Mom. I have
be there in
I
person.
all's good.
And we have There you go. We all chose different ones, so I got the iPhone
Okay,
on the right.
Pixel.
Ah, okay, so the iPhone is now at 1.5 points for me, and the Pixel is at 1 point.
I got the Ultra.
All right, we have a selfie. Look at that. They're very, very.
Oh my dude, you couldn't take a selfie once that was fully sharp on all. Like, why is it blurry on all models to a degree? Like, I know selfies aren't the sharpest thing, but please, can I, like, the right one is probably the best one, right? Haha, right.
Very similar.
They're really good.
Wow. Okay, I'm actually going with the right one right away.
Yeah, I'm going
It's
with the
this
right
detail,
one.
Like his sweater, his kind of.
I don't know if it was his inability to take a sharp picture or maybe just one camera managed to do it, but I'm
Super
going
sharp.
with the right.
That's great.
Fuck
I'm going
it.
with that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I really like the one on the right. The one on the left is the second best, but it's a little too bright.
This is amazing. On the right, so crystal clear, very
Yeah.
much detail.
It's a killer one. Yep. Oh, wow.
Ooh, the
Did not
iPhone did not
because
expect that.
S23 has a
2.5
40
points for the
megapixel
iPhone,
camera.
Yeah,
yeah.
I thought that was the
Interesting.
S23.
That. All right, we have. Oh, wow. Look at that. This is probably like a crop from like far away.
Yeah.
I guess the
Which
right
one's the
one.
best?
The right.
Alright.
The
The right.
To the right.
Okay, yeah, it's got to be the right. Oh, look at that. That's a
S23.
huge crop. S23.
Wait, which camera mode did you use? Like, that makes no sense. Like, wait. Like, okay, whatever. Samsung gets a point. Now it's over the Pixel. Like, I just haven't found any real testing where, like, Samsung actually is sharper than the iPhone. So this surprises me, but hey,
Ultra.
I'll
That's probably
accept it.
because it's probably using the 200 megapixel
Oh, yeah, I don't... never use the 200 megapixel mode. Never.
compared to 48 and Pixel 7 Pro. Yeah, not doing good. All right, we got a port.
But by the way, the overall image is actually bad on the Samsung, right? Yeah, it's like it's shadowy, it's dark, it's way too blue. Like, you guys can scroll back, I cannot because I'm using this as a media source in OBS. But this does not look good as an overall image. It's only this specific part of the sensor. You know what? I'm giving Samsung... Okay, I'll keep it at that. If you really wanted maybe just this part of the screen, at that point I just struggle why you wouldn't take a 5x zoom at that
right
point.
here, so it looks like
Ah, Jesus, like, come on. Those are such preference-driven pictures. I have no idea what your freaking wife looks like IRL. Like, how am I supposed to differentiate those things here? Like, it's not like the HDR is better on either one.
I don't know if this is a 3x portrait or something, but
For me, the one on the right has probably the most true colors in it.
Well, yeah, probably,
Really
okay.
sharp, really good background versus the other ones.
I like the one in the center the most. If I look at her,
You see, they disagree. Like, those are not the right... Like, this is... I guess this goes to show that Drew from Tylosive Tech is right when he says that there's no, like, real difference between, like, modern smartphone cameras. But those shots have been, like, good ever since, like, I would say the iPhone 11 Pro.
hair, there's the most detail in it. When the other
Yeah, please, if you zoomed in, maybe I could see the detail.
ones are a little bit crushed, and I think the portrait worked the best right here, where it got like all of her little hairs, and then on the left and the right, it kind of messed up a little bit.
Did it? How would I be able to tell that with the way you are showing it on screen? They should... Well, they will do more complex lighting overall, but like, yeah, in this direct sunlight, even a cheap phone can take it, Origin. You're absolutely correct. You know what? I'm taking the copium on this one. I guess this would be anti-copium at this point. I'm just saying it's a three-way tie for me.
Cuts them out.
that's a good point. I do see like a little bit of mess up here. A ton of issues
Yeah,
right
on
over
the
here.
By the way, my prediction is the iPhone is the one in the middle.
And like her hair's black, like
Super
it's
dark.
gone. I also like the center. I like how it's got a little bit of a yellowish glow to it. Oh man, I think I'm.
Yeah, this is by the way what I'm telling you guys. I could cheat myself through it. I know how iPhone's photos look and feel like. There is nothing here that will surprise me. I could give the iPhone 90% of the points this way, but I want to be honest. So how do I give 1/3? Okay, I'll do it this way. Whenever it's a three-way tie, I give 1/4 of a point. So it takes the iPhone to 2.75, the Samsung to 1.75, and the Pixel to 1.25. I think that's actually fair. It's like ranked choice voting almost.
Going with the 15 Pro Max again. What's going on? Next up, oh, look at that. Chilling on the bench. I think this is...
Like, I have no idea which one is more accurate. How would I... Jesus Christ, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, I don't know where the ground is, like, more accurate. It's like, it could be completely blown out on the center and the right, but then it could also be, like, artificially over-sharpened on the left one. Like, this is the problem when you take those images and you don't take, like, a comparative images from, like, a full-frame sensor real camera.
Supposed to be portrait on each one, right? However, it didn't work on that one.
Did not work.
Right?
Yeah, like, honestly, I have to listen to what they're saying. I have to listen to what they're saying. Well, yeah, I guess you could say that yellowish, warmer colors. For me, it don't do that, but because I take pro raw images. So to me, the iPhone is completely natural, and I hate that people don't test that way ever, even as an option, just to show how much easier it is to actually use pro raw versus expert raw. But you know, like, who could ever expect actual, like I have to listen to what they're saying when it comes to portrait mode, because I cannot see the actual faults of the portrait mode.
These are very
Like, why don't you zoom in a little?
similar, but I feel like there's the most depth and detail on the one on the left with all this concrete and stuff, when the center one looks
Yeah, there's a lot of detail, but it looks also a little over contrasty.
a little bit flat and washed out.
I actually agree.
Like, if they're saying the concrete looks actually more detailed, I'll fucking go with the one on the left. Fuck it.
I'm with you on that, but I'm struggling between the left and the center.
They should try indoors with multiple light sources hitting the camera. Well, yeah, but that would be way too scientific and accurate.
Just because of how...
Like, Jesus. Like, I want to say the left, but no, the left looks like, look at the grass on the back, right? It almost, oh, it's supposed to be a portrait mode. Okay, then the right one is out, because the right one did not do a portrait mode, almost whatsoever. Is there, like, any errors in the I'll go with the left.
Right.
Fuck it. I think the left is the Pixel or the
Right,
something.
Well, chose 15.
Oh, the iPhone. Actually, the iPhone. Okay, I went with the iPhone here. And it doesn't actually look too iPhone-ish. So the iPhone is now at 3.75 for me.
Was S23? Not bad. Oh, wow. This is a very far...
The right one looks weird. Is that even supposed to be a portrait mode on the right? Or is it just a telephoto?
Portrait? What in the world? It's like a really far portrait.
So would the amount of blur be accurate?
That's a lot of...
Or is it too much?
I don't know, yeah.
I mean, guys, this is the problem. You should use a fucking full-frame sensor to compare it to. Oh my god, Max Tech really does not, like, they've grown so much. I expected more. I like the one on the left the best. I think this looks, I think the one in the center looks way too strong right away, and I think on the right there is basically nothing happening, which again, if on the iPhone you take a portrait mode, you can really turn it off in a really nice gradual way. I know you can do that with the other phones, but I know you can do it. This is why I always don't like, oh, this is how portrait mode looked like. Like, you can tune it, dude.
Compared to the other ones, it looks like a lot.
There's not much blurring, on the right one at all.
And that one looks
Zoom
really weird
in!
and, like,
Zoom in, dude! Let me see
yeah,
the
that's true.
detail.
I mean, honestly, I'm gonna go with the left. I
have
feel
to
like
go with
there's
the
too
left.
much...
You may have a bias since you're used to iPhone pictures. No. Wait, I did let the Samsung win right in the beginning almost. I have a bias of what I actually prefer. I have seen completely unbiased tests where I like the Pixel better for years. Like, ask my mom, where I have shown her like collages of like Pixel 5 pictures versus the most recent iPhone or Pixel 4 or something like that. And I have told her over and over again how I love the Pixel imaging. Like, let me go into detail. I don't like the for one, I do think that Apple's portrait modes are usually much more physically accurate. But I think when you actually look at the middle image, right? You cannot see my mouse cursor, but it, like, I don't think the genes were actually that large. A lot is lost in shadows, right? And then on the right, it feels like there's a lot. Well, it's hard to tell with the jacket, because I probably prefer like the detail. These images look so different. Like, I don't even know how they were captured. Like, this is also part of it. Like, just saying I like an image better does not necessarily mean anything. Sometimes I want a specific look when I take a specific photo from one of the specific sensors. I'll just say on the left, whichever that might end up being. Who cares? I don't like their testing anyway. And the iPhone wins in my...
photoshopped onto like
That's
the
far.
background.
Or it was a DSLR.
Really
Zoomed in from
Nope.
distance. I would-
Origin unknown, you are wrong here. Portrait mode is not just subjective outlining. It uses for once as subjective as possible outlining, but the way that the portrait mode goes into the background is way more accurate on the iPhone. Actually, try looking how it. For one, try capturing almost the same image with just the main sensor, because that's usually what people have, right? The phone that they already have. But then the other point is, try actually looking how this works with a big camera, and you'll find that there's a gradual drop off in detail. Portrait mode is not just your subject in detail and everything else is blurry. This is what a lot of Samsungs have done in the first couple of years, and it has always looked trash. And it's similar to what the 7 Plus used to do, the original iPhone portrait camera. And I didn't like it either. If you actually go back to like my photo library, which I won't be showing you guys, you'll find that I took very few portrait cameras back on my iPhone 7 Plus because I simply didn't like the look of them. I'm actually very consistent, and for example, I've been for years very critical of the yellowish tint in iPhone pictures, but guess what? Then Apple introduced Pro RAW, and it has been completely solved for me to the point where I believe the iPhone actually has way better color balance than something like the Pixel or the Samsung. And then for years, I've also been critical about the iPhone's HDR capabilities, which have finally been addressed with the 15 Pro Max, which again are not perfect because the sensor size is simply not comparable to like a full frame sensor, but it is much nicer thanks to the A17 Pro.
Because how his silhouette is so cutting through.
Well, you chose the 15.
You see, you're like, I don't like the iPhone camera here. I have no problem admitting that. You're saying I am biased because I have an iPhone. I just chose the Samsung, so the Samsung takes a better lead over the Pixel now, even more so. The iPhone is at 3.75, the Samsung is at 2.75, and the Pixel is at 1.25. Yeah, I don't know, the Pixel, like, I don't even know if the right one was supposed to be a portrait shot. That's part of it. And then, again, part of this is also like, what camera was this captured at? If I'm capturing it with the ultra wide, I expect the image on the right. If I'm capturing it with the 5x, wait, did they say which one it was? Because if it is a 5x telephoto, then the iPhone wins. If it's a main sensor image, then the S23 Ultra wins. If it's an ultra wide image, then the Pixel wins.
Those S23. Whoa, okay, so this is meant to go against the sun. To, I guess, check out the flaring. I mean, I gotta go with the one on the right.
Yeah.
The girl is brighter on the right.
Don't get that ring right here. All the colors are popping nicely. and you can see his face very well. I'm
Yeah.
going with the right.
The left one really
Okay,
distracts
I'm sorry. I assumed it was a girl. I don't know why I
from the
assumed that.
subject, just how crazy the flaring is. But the right one looks so crisp and so nice.
100% with you
100%?
guys.
Yeah.
It's a very crystal clear image.
That is the
15.
15 Pro Max. Wow. It looks like Apple's new.
Like
feature where they got
this was actually like it was small differences, but really noticeable once they zoomed out and showed like the overall girl, right? YouTube Origin, you realized your mistake and you removed the message. It's all good, dude, but like I really want to hammer home. Like look at my reaction of the petapixel video, where they really go into a little bit more portrait mode stuff, and where they really highlight like the difference between like main sensor versus 5x portrait effect versus how software handles it. I think it actually works really well. And now YouTube is like, yeah, YouTube has a small lag, but it seems to be pretty decent for today. I think it's like 7 seconds or something.
The lens flare is working quite well for this one. Oh, that's
So yeah, I have to give the iPhone an extra point. The iPhone is now at 4.75.
a far shot. Wow.
I would choose the one on the left just for the amount of crispness in it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, same.
S23 is
Yes.
10x lens. I mean, it kills it. Next up,
Yeah, so the Samsung does some light catching up. The Pixel thus far
looks like we got
really
another
behind.
portrait right here.
I think I like the one in the center the most. The one on the right looks very weird and unnatural. I don't like.
I don't like her face in the right one. The left one is not HDR-y enough, I guess. I can do more with the center image. I can brighten it up just a tad while still maintaining a lot of her natural color look, skin tone look.
How dark
Yeah, I'm
the
going
one
with the one in the
is, but you can
center.
always bring that up. And I see a ton of detail in her jacket that's lost in the left one. And I really like that this.
You see,
foreground
I
area
cannot
is
speak to
blurred.
that because
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, I'd
obviously
have to agree
looking
with all
at
those
the
points. I
1080p
love how
footage.
it's blurred out. And one thing I noticed too, if you look at her jacket, her coat, and her face, there's highlight roll-off where it has a really natural highlights and like shadows.
differences
Where
and
here it's all just
flat.
flat and same thing kind of there. So,
Yeah,
center.
like I'm choosing the center image for HDR, by the way. I think I prefer the overall look of the right image, but I really think her face looks bad in the right image. Which obviously takes it down. I also think that whatever you see in the center image, you can really correct that easily with just an ever so slight brightening up afterwards.
For me too.
I have to disagree.
Oh.
The one on the right with me, unfortunately, guys.
No,
I
her
feel
face
like
looks
the
bad.
Colors represented best on the right one.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah, I agree.
the left one has a very similar look, but a lot of details have been lost.
Let's see. That's the
Yep.
Pixel. Yeah. Pretty good on colors. All right. Looks
Yeah,
like
by the way, this is what I'm saying. I did prefer the overall color profile of the image better on the Pixel. I think this is where Pixel's strength is, but I think the iPhone is now way better at handling faces. iPhone 5.75, Samsung at 3.75, Pixel at 1.25.
got almost like a macro shot. Looks like it's using one of the telephone.
I mean, I guess I don't know which one has objectively. I guess the right one is probably objectively the best. Like the center one is not like it's not in focus, and on the left one, the colors just look a little
What do you guys
off.
think? I mean, one thing I noticed is.
But I wish
feel
they
like
were
the
to
highlights
zoom
are
in
blown
because
out
it really.
over the detail.
I feel like there's
the
a
grasshopper
little
there.
detail lost. Yeah.
Probably between left and right.
By the way, such a picture is always very difficult because just the smallest of movement can lead for you to not be able to focus on the exact same thing.
Actually, I'm noticing more detail on the left, guys. I'm going for
Really? Well, that's the problem. I cannot zoom in on that one.
that one.
Yeah. I think I like the left one more because he stands out a little more.
But, like, I think I have to give it to them in that regard. Like, I cannot see the detail because I cannot zoom in here in OBS. But, like, you know what? I'm giving it a draw between the right and the left.
Compared to like the background, where on the right one I'm looking way more on the ground than I am at at the guy.
Like for me personally, on the right one, I can see both the asphalt on the background and the object itself.
The colors are
It just
And you like that being able to see the back.
how clear it is.
Now, before I reveal which phone is which, I've got to show you guys two of the best cases you can buy for the iPhone 15 lineup from our sponsor, Pitaka. Both of these have MagSafe magnets built in, and they're weaved out of real aramid fiber.
Oh, they actually do have a slim case like mine. Like,
Super strong, yet very lightweight.
that leaves the
especially their
sides
Mag
open.
Easy
Oh, I think I'll have to get this one.
Case 4, which is less than 1 millimeter thick and so light, it basically makes it feel like you're not using a case at all, but you are. And it's very strong, including a protective camera bump guard. Now, Pitaka's Mag Easy Case Pro 4 is even more tough and durable with a thicker weave for ultimate shock resistance, wrapping all the way around all the edges
Oh, but that looks good too.
and
Ooh.
buttons, with a protruding rim on the front to protect your display as well. And
Oh, but I don't like the cutout around the USB-C.
my favorite part is the super tactile metal buttons to give it a very premium look and feel.
I'll
So
look
definitely
what the
check these
color
cases out
options
and
for
buy one
those
today
will
by
be like.
using the links in the description below to get 10% off using code MAXTECH10. All right, let's reveal it. And it looks like you had the Pixel. We had the
Okay, so the iPhone and the Pixel do have a draw here for me. As I've said before, the left and the right, which puts the iPhone at 6.25 and the Pixel finally at a little higher at 1.75.
15. All right, the next one looks like we have a really close kind of like macro shot.
The first thing I'm noticing is that this center area is in focus on this one,
Yeah.
but it's not on the others. It's just like these petals. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the left one. Also, all these little hairs and everything are just so in focus and look really cool.
Yeah, okay. You see, guys, this is why I'm listening to them. It's not that I'm getting influenced, but then again, you see a lot more detail on like the upper petals, right? With the other images. Quite honestly, like, it's hard to say. I do prefer the look on the left, but I don't know if it really would be impossible to reproduce that image on other phones. It's just a different focal point, I guess. So I'll give it a small win for the left.
This one's extremely
Risk
tough.
it for the
I think I'm gonna
biscuit.
go with the center. I just like how the edges of the flower are all like really sharp.
I have to agree with Angelica. I completely agree that the center is perfectly in focus, and you can see the details on the leaves.
Oh, let's see. You guys both got the S23. Wow.
A 1 point for the Samsung puts it at 4.75. But then again, I don't think that any of those images are like so better or worse than the other. I just think that the end result is different, and that honestly will often come down to the photographer.
The iPhone did not do well on that one. Next up.
No, I don't think the iPhone did poorly. I think the center and the right one are not that different. Oh my god, it's one of his Christian rock things. Oh Jesus.
We got a far zoom shot. Look at that.
I almost want to refuse to rate it because the subject is so cringe. It's between the left and the right because the center one is barely in focus. Again, can be an issue with it. I strongly suspect that the right one is the Pixel, but I'll give it
Got
to
some
it.
noise over here on the
Ton
left.
of noise.
not there.
Yeah.
How? Like, I cannot tell that noise in the YouTube image. Zoom in, you
Yeah,
bastards.
the middle is kind of like smeared.
It is really
Soft.
smooth.
It's the right
The
one.
is very detailed, very sharp.
Yeah, you guys like that one?
Yep.
Yeah, me too. Looks really, really good. No noise.
I suspect it's the Pixel. Yep.
Pixel.
Wow.
Whoa, the Pixel one.
Surprising.
I told you guys, I'm really good
Oh,
at
cool. We got
differentiating them.
another portrait mode shot. I don't know if this is 1x or 3x, but
Yeah, it seems like the center one is definitely portrait, but the other ones don't
yeah,
really look.
they're not working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard
Oh,
to
okay.
say.
It's supposed to be a portrait. Well, then the center absolutely
What,
wins.
Who's trying to achieve here?
But then again, you can tune in the portrait settings. As long as there are no mistakes, you can just adjust it on all modern smartphones.
for the portrait, absolutely the center.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's supposed to be a portrait, it has to be the center.
Normal.
It's also brighter in general in a more pleasing way.
I think I
guess
gotta
I
go
have
with the
to go
center.
for-
It just
yeah,
looks
center.
so much better. Plus, I love the glow on their hair. 15? I wonder
Yeah.
if that's the 5x lens. Next up, oh, we got another cool portrait shot. Right away, for me, I'm not liking the center.
So yeah, that's the
I'm
first thing
seeing
I
like
thought.
some artifacts in his face, and it's insanely blue.
Super blue, super blue.
The center is the
Yeah, the
pixel,
one on the
calling
left
it
is
now.
absolutely the winner. Though the center and the right are close in quality, but you can tell that the one on the right is way too warm, and the one in the middle is way too cool.
And I'm seeing a ton of detail, like in the jeans, that you do not get
Interesting.
in the right photo, and I really like the highlights and the contrast.
You know what? I'll be an asshole. I give it. I'll give it a draw. Well, there's so much more detail on the left. I wish this. I'll give it to the left because it looks more detailed. I know this might look. I think I highly suspect this is the iPhone image, but there's so much more detail in the jacket.
On his face, like there's shadows, when the one on the right is very, very flat.
I agree with you guys. The left is definitely the best. And one thing I also like is the depth kind of roll off. You can see.
By the way, I don't like how warm the left one is overall, but it does not have the orange hue of the right one. And when you actually go down his brown shoes, like the brown on the left one looks way more pleasing. So this kind of leads me to believe that the right one is really inaccurate. So my prediction is middle is Pixel, right is Samsung, left is iPhone. And given that I know how to use an iPhone, I can turn this into I can take this as a really, really awesome Pro RAW.
It gets more blurry as you get further away. Looks really, really
Looks
unique.
very
I
natural.
like that. That's the iPhone.
Yeah, of
Next
course
up,
it's the
oh, this looks like a low light zoom shot.
Okay, how can I tell this? Like, this person was obviously moving, so sometimes you really cannot blame either camera, but I guess just almost by default, like, I mean, the center looks better. Like, in this specific instant, the center looks
Honestly,
better.
they all look pretty terrible,
yeah,
but
the
one of them
center.
looks better than the rest. Yeah, it's the center. I mean, look
What
at that.
happened
All
to
of this looks
the
so
left
nice.
one?
Oh my
He is-
goodness.
The left was blown out because it probably didn't know which light to focus
That's a
on.
massive fail.
It looks like he's just fading
Yeah.
into oblivion.
It goes, oh, okay.
Oh, that's actually a nice zoom from this. Well, I actually did not expect this to be the iPhone image.
It's a crop. Whoa.
It didn't have like the iPhone specific look. Well, wow, the iPhone is like leading now almost by double over the Samsung and over triple over the Pixel.
Wow. Yep. 15 Pro Max did the best for this detail with HDR. Probably like smart HDR5 is working right there. Oh, wow. Look at that. Okay.
What happened to... Wait, what is going on with the middle image? Is that the problem with how they're filming the display, or is that...
This is
Okay.
like a long.
Okay, that was a problem with how they filmed the display. Okay, the right one is garbage. The left and the middle ones are really pleasing. To a way where I mean, it's easy for me to tell which one is the iPhone, but I'll give it a draw actually between the left. Well, again, the jacket. I mean, the jacket kind of gives it away in every shot, where the iPhone gets faces or maybe a little too warm, but like the jacket looks fantastic on the iPhone in the way it doesn't do on the others. But
Range.
I'll listen shortly to how they see it to decide whether I give it a draw or a win to the center.
Or a crop.
Man, that one on the right looks very
Flat, completely unappealing.
Pasty.
That's the
Yes.
pixel bit also.
I'm going with the middle one.
Yeah, I have to go with the middle one. The colors and everything on the left is just super purpley, and you're this is all so smooth when you actually have that detail
That's
in
a
the
good point.
center.
Yeah, you see
Really?
the shadow.
Okay, then I'm going for the center. Again, it's hard for me to tell the difference of detail because obviously I cannot zoom in or anything, or see it even live on that image. I see it through a saved, slightly downgraded version of the YouTube video, which is already like not native.
No lines, and it's not like all
You can
one
see the
block.
texture.
And her face too. You can see this is all blown out, kind of. This is nice and like.
It's more natural.
Yeah, so it's the center. It's the iPhone. Of course, it's the
Crop on
iPhone.
Dang, that's good. Next up, we have a selfie. This looks like evening.
I mean, it's not even close. I know it will be the iPhone once again, but look at, like, those images are absolutely comparable. It's the center
So
one.
for me, no brainer. The middle.
Definitely the middle.
Yeah.
Definitely the middle. What is that?
Oh.
What?
Of
How is it 15? Like,
Once again.
it used to lose in all the selfies all the time. Oh, okay, so we got
Okay.
It's between the right and the left. I like the sky on the left side looks a little too much. The right one looks ever so slightly too warm, I guess, but it looks more pleasing still. It's the right one.
regular 1X. Looks like no portraits.
Definitely not the center
Yeah,
one.
what happened there?
Alita's
She's like,
gone.
"Ah."
She's disappeared
Okay.
into the void.
To me, I'm going with the right. I'm looking closely and I see in his sweater tons of like fiber details, right?
Yeah, I was like, why in his? Aren't you that? No, this is Vadim, and in the pictures it's Max.
I'm liking that one the best.
I'm not a big fan of the colors of the right one, but in terms of all the detail and everything, it definitely.
But I get, guys, I could make the argument, right? People will be like, well, don't you think the iPhone's faces look too warm? I could also make the argument that the sky in the left one looks like it comes from some kind of like an like absurd animation where like the sky is this perfect brightish blue, or I guess it's, well, not super bright, but you know what I mean. It's like highly saturated, and then the center one just looks like crap.
Guys, I'm sorry. I'm
What?
going with the left one.
The
As
left
much
one.
as I agree about the
But again, and if this is the iPhone, take a Pro Raw, it will look way better than any of those images.
details on his sweater,
Yep.
this kind of redness in the middle feels a little
What
bit
redness? I don't see that.
Yeah,
I
the
don't know.
colors
Red
aren't
tint.
It's
the
a
best.
little too way too oversaturated.
Yep.
So I'm going with the left one is because it's the most natural looking one.
Well, that's
Ooh, interesting. So I guess in this case the iPhone got the faces more correct, but the sky less correct. Well, I guess Samsung was overdue to finally get an extra point. I probably should have gone for a draw between the left and the right. It was my first instinct, but hey, it's good for Samsung to at least have half the points of the iPhone.
all right. Next up, another kind of dark evening shot.
No brainer for me.
Yeah.
The second
I
one.
mean, wow,
center,
look at the
yeah.
hair.
I guess it's the one that's actually sharp, right? I don't like either any of the images, but if there's one that I had to use, I guess it would be the center.
Oh, the hair.
Is that the pixel?
See how blurry?
Yeah, they're
are
super blurry.
super
This is
soft.
super blown out.
Almost like motion. Oh, look at the motion
Yeah,
blur on that
yeah.
one. It's like it takes a while to take the photo.
iPhone.
That's the iPhone? Guys, I look at this. This is for all the people who are like, oh, the iPhone is like always much warmer. Look at the S23 Ultra here. Like, nope, the iPhone is not always warmer. Look at the prior image that we just discussed. The iPhone is apparently not always the one that is more warm, now with Smart HDR5.
15.
15.
So the iPhone now has 12.25 points. That's crazy.
Oh, look at that, guys. What is going on? This
Yeah.
is so blue.
Yeah, one image is actually usable. It's the left one.
Wow.
Looks like a
That's
horror movie.
insane. Oh my goodness, this is
Wow.
crazy.
I have a slight idea what this might be. Guys, no pre-watch. I swear, I saw their end results where the iPhone won by a lot, but I did not watch the entire video by any means. My prediction, we're looking at a night side image. Is it with the zoom camera? Yeah, I think it's a night side image with the zoom cameras.
Do you guys see the tree details?
In the fence.
Oh my
And
goodness.
just look at this pixelation.
Yeah.
And then not at all.
Nothing.
Man.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
15? Oh, that's probably why.
I'm not surprised.
You're not surprised?
Yeah.
One thing that Apple said was they added stabilization to the periscope telephoto camera. That might be why the night mode is working better. Okay,
And
we
I've
got
been
a-
trying to hammer this home point since the iPhone came out, which is that there is so much more than just the zoom range to an actual zoom camera.
1X, I think.
I'm really liking the one on the right.
Me too. What are your reasons for it?
But neither one is really in focus. Can I take points away for those images being shot poorly? It's like they focused on the car and not on her, right? So I guess, Jesus, which one? I do like the, well, yeah, the background. Like, it's almost like they've focused on really different things in those images. I'll listen to what they have to say.
Equal amount of color.
Yep.
The exposure looks the most natural compared to the other two.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a big fan of all of them, but I think the right one is the.
Yeah, I kind of don't want to give a point here. You know what? I'll instigate a new rule. I hate all those images. So I'm not giving even a quarter of a point. Okay, I'll give a quarter point to each one because I think they all look bad in that regard. If I had to guess, the iPhone probably is the one either in the middle or in the right. I actually haven't yet adjusted fully to Smart HDR5.
Well, that's the Pixel.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just quarter points for me. I did not like any of the images. I wouldn't use... so it's 13.5 now for the iPhone, 6 exactly for the Samsung, and 3 exactly for the Pixel.
Got another one.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, this is ultra wide at night.
If you look at the brick wall, disregarding everything else, they are very close.
Yep.
But then as you start looking deeper into the shot, how much of the detail is lost and how blurry this one gets and this one. So
They took like such weird images. Like, why would you take an ultra wide where your subject is so small?
yeah, this one is difficult to decide.
Yeah, the one on the right looks very flat and faded, and the
Yeah, the right one is the worst. I agree with that, but it's very difficult to pick a favorite between the left and the center. I see like more detail in the brick wall in the center, but I almost cannot see her in this shot. I really cannot do any analysis on her.
just don't look natural. Like shadows shouldn't have a color to them. The one in the center, I really like.
Shadows can sometimes have a color because it's not the shadow that's being colored, it's the ambient light around it that's providing some color. But I guess in this specific scenario she is kind of correct though.
The brick has like a ton of detail. If you look at this little poster, you can see little lines where the words are. This one's a little smeary. The center one's super detailed and sharp.
You know what? I'll go with them because, as I've said, there's not much difference between the center and the left, but the center seems to be a little more sharp, so I'll not make it a draw. I'll just go with it and say the center is the better one.
I mean, I gotta agree. I like the center one, especially since the highlights are not as blown out here for the sign, and it's kind of like sharp. I like that.
100% with you guys.
That's the Pixel.
Pixel.
Yeah,
Wow.
finally an extra point for the Pixel.
Huh.
Yeah, they all have their flaws. I think I'm gonna have to go with the center one. You can see the most detail. There are parts in the left
Ooh,
one.
it's hard. Like, there's no, like... Ooh, which one? Yeah, I kind of have to go with the center. Man, modern smartphones have really come far. I can barely tell them apart. Well, that isn't always a good thing, right? Because if you were to actually compare it to like a full frame camera, they would all suck pretty much. But yeah, I agree with the basic premise. But man, like, it's hard because I do like the tower the most in the center, but like where the street lamp is, I prefer the look on the left. Then the one on the right just looks a little weird. I'll guess for the extra detail I kind of have to go with the center.
That are detailed, and then there's other parts that are completely crushed, so it's like a big drastic shift in that. The center one you can see a good amount, but it still looks like a nighttime photo. It doesn't look daytime.
I mean, for me, I don't like the center. I just feel like there's blotchiness, like all the...
Yeah, the sky, like... Jesus, like, it's so... those are honestly bad images that I wouldn't really use. I'm going to the left for the night tower. Okay, Origin, you know what? I'm listening to you almost, and I'm going with a draw between the left and the center.
Artifacts everywhere.
Just not with the
The
right,
right
I
one
guess.
is way too dark while being blown out. I'm going for the left, even though it's not that good. I think it's the best.
Oh, I also like that it's not blown out here, so you can see the details on the inside here compared to the left one.
So I was gonna go 100% with the left one at first, but then as I looked deeper, I changed my mind.
Alright.
It's gonna be the right
We
one.
all chose the wrong one.
Even though it's not enough light, but I want to say it's very natural looking one. It's out of the three. That's the one I would put on the wall, like a.
I wouldn't
photo.
put any of the and at any wall.
Yeah, you chose the big
Yeah,
one.
okay, it's a draw. So
Yeah.
that brings up the iPhone to 14, the Samsung to 6.5, and the Pixel is at a nice 4.
You could chose that
Interesting.
S23. Wow. So we got probably a zoom shot here, right off.
Oh, the
bat.
left one, right?
I'm going
I
with
mean,
the left.
yeah, the left one, like the middle one, like I'll probably have to acknowledge that the right one probably has better colors overall. The center one is too cool in an unpleasing way. Yeah, I'm choosing the left
I love
one.
how the color of the lamp kind of shows off. Everything
Yeah.
in general looks pretty good. It's a little bit warm, but I hate
It's a little bit
all
warm
the
again, nothing you
sharpening.
wouldn't be able to
Yeah, the one
correct.
on the right is very smudgy, very blurry.
Yeah,
The
but
center
also
one
like
looks
the level of detail on the left is just much better. Again, it's not that I prefer warmer looking images by default. It's just the iPhone is warmer and more detailed.
almost artifacty to me. The one on the left, yeah, it's pretty warm, but it looks the most detailed.
Mid one looks noisy around the trees. Yes, mid one is like noisy. Also, look at the color tone of the car. Like I can fully acknowledge that the left one is like a little maybe too warm, just a tad. But like the center one has like almost this like turquoise tint to it. I really don't like it. And then the right one, even though maybe the colors are the best, probably, it's so undetailed, it's so unsharp, and it's clearly in focus, by the way. So this is a problem of the actual camera. Like the right one, even though it's technically less grainy than the center, it's actually less detailed. It just does better noise correction, I guess.
Smooth and realistic and balanced.
The left one is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, the left one wins this by a wide margin.
iPhone again.
Whoa.
Not even close.
Is this ultra wide or main? It might be ultra wide. I mean, I feel like I'm going for the right because I'm seeing a lot of detail on the
detail.
bridge, down here, all the textures.
Well, look, the right one is obviously the iPhone. I guess this is why it's warmer, right? But then you have this red hue on the left one that really isn't there in the same way. Like, and then I mean, like when you look down below, right? The sky I probably like the most on the left. Maybe the overall balance is best met in the center. But then again, as I said before, the iPhone turns out warmer images by default, but it's nothing you couldn't correct. I actually wouldn't know which one is the Pixel and which one is the Samsung.
Yeah, it's
Right,
the
for me.
most crushed down here. However, the details of everything is just way beyond the other two.
The one on the right absolutely
sharp.
Kills it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Okay, yeah, I guess like the really like wrong like pinkish hue down below would be more appropriate for the Samsung than the Pixel.
man.
Oh,
wow.
okay.
You're choosing. Oh yeah, sorry, Origin. That was still the old image that you were referencing to. Wait, did I already correct the iPhone for 15? You know what? I'll just give it another point. Who cares? It's 16 then.
Okay.
I think we were at 15 before that.
For this one. I like the center.
That center one looks so
Yeah, this is really blown out, huh?
so good. Super blown out, and then there's so much detail.
Try to look at the trees. Yeah, it's the center one. It's the center. Yeah, also look at how the park is like. On the middle one you get like the building in focus, but you also still get a really nice amount of detail for everything else. On the left one you get like the blown out lights on the building, but then you also get everything else sort of looking decent, and then on the right you have the building looking somewhat well, but then everything else is absolutely not in
That
focus.
was lost. like in the darkness. I'm impressed how much you can see here and in the sky and everything, and it looks so natural too.
John, you agree?
Center it is.
Center pixel.
Wow,
this time.
pixel.
Just back and forth.
Oh, okay. Well, wow, Pixel up to an astounding 5 points.
Portrait, right?
Oh, like this is such a subjective image. By default, I probably would say the center, but let's say wait what they have to say, because obviously they know her. Like it's either the center or the. I mean, is it though? Oh, it's hard to tell sometimes. I'll listen to what they briefly have to say.
For me, it's definitely the one on the left. The one on the right, way too much detail is lost because it's way too dark. Like her hair, her jacket, she just kind of disappears. The one in the center, even though it's a portrait, it's so incredibly flat. The one on the left...
But like, flat isn't bad in all scenarios. Sometimes an image looks a little flat. Like, flat is bad when it just... when flat results in like loss of detail or something, but it's not like any of those images have to be like super evocative given how they are shot. Like, I'm giving it a draw between the left and the center. There are very different images. The left one is probably the iPhone. I could pick it if I just wanted the iPhone to win. I suspect the left one is the iPhone and the center is the Pixel.
Detail on her face, everything looks very natural, very realistic.
I would go with the left one because how natural it is.
Yeah, me too. All those things. S23.
Oh my god, the iPhone lost in an image where they clearly didn't manage to capture a sharp image. Who could have guessed? So that brings Samsung up to 7 and Pixel up to 5.5. See, definitely no pre-watch.
Kind of zoom portrait here.
No brainer for me. Right.
It is definitely the most detailed.
Yeah.
I really like the hair.
Yeah, it's
all
the
that
right-
detail, and, like,
the right one.
Brightness in the highlights.
True.
When the other two are a little smudgy.
Yeah, the other two are kind of soft. It's a good one.
Beautiful.
Pixel.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. it's
Good,
like
well done, Pixel.
all over the place. It's crazy. Oh, Red Robin.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to like I don't know what the Red Robin sign. Let me Google that. What does the Red Robin sign actually look like? I'll make this somewhat scientific. If my internet allows me to do anything. Oh my god, I cannot Google. The fuck? What's wrong with my Wi-Fi? Like,
Not the pink one.
Pink.
yeah, I guess the pink one is wrong. However you want to see that, but like,
It's a Barbie color.
Yeah. They're very close, so I guess it just goes down to personal preference, but I like how the left one pops.
I agree with Angelica.
I'm actually gonna choose the right one, guys, because I looked really closely at this.
okay, so I'm doing this one, Red Robin. Red Robin sign, I guess. Okay, those are not here on TripAdvisor. It actually looks pink because it was clearly captured with a worse camera, but like I'll give it a draw between the left and the right.
Gourmet burgers and brews. I kind of like how it looks a little
You
bit
like
more sharp
the
and detailed
contrast.
there more.
Yeah.
So I'm just
A little
gonna,
more round?
you know, I don't. Going for the. Oh wow, Pixel, you guys. Got
Yeah,
50.
I think that may like iPhone and Pixel having a draw here. 16.5 on the iPhone, 7 on the Pixel. The Pixel is actually now on par with the Samsung.
Oh,
Okay, it's
this
getting
must
really
be
dark.
Super dark.
No.
Those are bad images. Like, come on. I wouldn't use either one.
Thank you.
I think the center
Pretty
one
garbage.
is the best in this scenario.
1000%.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, if they can see the detail, I'll just believe them in that regard. Watching this on my phone is not helping. Yeah, dude, it's like, well, you're watching me watching them, so a live stream definitely will. I guess if you had like another like device, you could watch their video in like 1440p or 4K. My streams are now 1080p, which also doesn't help, but at least my connection is now stable. I've dropped like 219 frames, which is less than 0.1%, thanks to being now on the faster internet and streaming at 1080p.
Yeah. 15.
Okay, center was better. Again, I cannot really see the detail, but I'll just trust them on that. That brings us up the iPhone to 17.5.
All right. Some low light.
first glance, I was gonna go with the white one, but then as I started looking in, I've noticed a lot of green. The cloth looks a little way too sharp, like over sharpened by processing. The one on the left.
Yeah, the one on the left. Like, I don't like the globe on the left, but if it's a night side image, that's pretty typical for artifacts. It's really for like color artifacts almost. I do prefer the globe in the center. You know what? Like, I know the center one looks flat, but I do like how functional it almost is. I do like how evocative the left one is. So even though, and I think the right one actually like captures someone at the middle ground with them. You know what? I'm going to be an asshole, and to me, those are all functional images. And I'll give it a draw between all of them. I don't prefer either one.
Looks the most organic.
You'll go with right there. You see? So, and I went through all of them.
I did notice the whole over sharpening here too.
I don't think the over sharpening looks bad. At least the globe still looks somewhat natural. Again, if they knew how to take photos correct, they would capture them in the most accessible raw format, but whatever.
Bothering me when I look at it. So, left as well.
Yeah, it was very tough to decide between the left and the right. They're both super close, but
I actually like the one in the middle. I don't get it. Like, the middle one is like relatively bright, sure, but like, is there a globe actually like a darkish orange tone in real life?
All right, that is the 15 again.
Yeah, I knew it was the 15. You didn't have to tell me. You know what? 17.75 for the iPhone. 7.25 for the Pixel and 7.25 for the Samsung.
Wow.
Oh,
This is like a really close macro shot. Wow.
I mean, the details are only visible on the right. Am I wrong here?
wow, there's so much detail in the right one. That is
Yeah, it has to be the
grim.
right one.
The center one looks like there's almost like motion blur, even though there shouldn't be.
Same.
Yeah, that right one looks.
Yeah, this almost looks like a
insane.
pro camera. Incredibly
Yeah.
good. Pixel.
What? Okay.
Wow. That's crazy good.
That looks so good.
Wow. Oh, this is
Okay.
a far shot right here. I mean, to me, I like the left, man.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, you
it's a
have to
little
almost
too
go
bright,
for
in
it,
my
right?
opinion, but
I
it's-
guess we are at the sheep situation again here, where the iPhone has the brightest image at
still
night.
better than the rest.
A lot better than that. That's for sure. 15. Wow.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, it's really impressive. And
That's it.
that was the last one. There were 35 photos
Okay.
in total. So we're going to write down and count how much we got. All right, guys, if you played along with us, count up your tallies. Comment down below which one won. But here's what we got, Johnny.
I got 18 for the iPhone 15.
Okay, I got 18.75 for the iPhone with my specific tally system.
S23 Ultra, and 11 for the Pixel.
Nice.
I also have more for the Pixel, but less, so I'll...
Yeah, I actually got pretty close. I got 21 for the iPhone, only 5 for the S23,
I have 7.25 for the Samsung.
9 for the Pixel.
And for me, I got 20 for the iPhone, 8 for the S23, and 7 for the Pixel.
Oh.
So
I have more for the Pixel than for the Samsung. I have 7.25 for the Samsung, 8.25 for the Pixel. So the iPhone more than double outperformed the Pixel, and way more than double outperformed the Samsung. So this is partially why I'm so interested in detailed rumors about next-gen cameras and stuff, because that really can recontextualize what we see, and maybe the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 will also go a long way with a faster image signal processor. But regardless of that, I had a very fun stream. I can only recommend you guys do what I call the YouTube jazz, which, you know, liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, as we've also had some nice commenters during this stream. If you want to support this channel directly, you can find now my Patreon in the channel description. You can also follow me on Twitter, or you can support me directly while you watch live by sending a super chat or a super sticker. I'll just briefly stay to see if anybody still has any questions or something like that, and then I'll be on my way. I have to give it a couple of seconds usually after I speak because of the delay. Okay, seems like everything is pretty cleared up for the most part. For the next couple of videos, I'm not yet quite sure what exactly I would like to do. I think I would like to continue my A17 Pro coverage if there's anything new and interesting coming out. I don't know if I'll be streaming this weekend anymore, but expect to stream like Monday evening. At the very latest on Tuesday though. So I'm really happy with the channel. I'm loving what I'm doing. Once again, I know that now that the iPhone like event is over, it's like a little difficult to get more people to subscribe, more people to support directly, but I'm still really appreciative of all the support that you guys and girls have given me over the last couple of weeks and months at this point. So I'll happily continue doing so as a hobby, really welcoming anybody who chooses to become part of this community, however you want to do this, whether it's just through YouTube, with Twitter, with direct support. That's all fine by me. I'm really grateful and appreciative of all your guys' efforts. Without further ado, this was a fun one. I think this was an informative one. It could be confusing at times, but this is Mark Tech tuning out. Seeing you in the next one.